Before we start, don't forget to share, like and subscribe for great new content. Russian revolutionary Vladimir Lenin once famously said, "A lie told often enough becomes truth." Actually, even that's a lie. The expression was first used in 1869 by writer Isa Blagden and is often misattributed to Lenin. Today we're looking at Kiwi examples of lies told often enough people believe they're true. We've all seen images of the 1840 treaty signing with marquees set up outside Treaty House in Russell, Māori tribal leaders looking resplendent, while the British, led by William Hobson, look regal as they both co-signed the first treaty between British colonists and the people native to the land they were colonising. But the treaty signing didn't go that way at all. Hobson initially thought it would take 3 days for the tribal representatives to make up their mind about signing, and reports about what actually happened on February 6th are mixed. He either arrived early and underdressed in plain clothes, or was awoken early and could only find his plumed hat and sign the treaty in his sleepwear. The one constant though is that he always felt he had to wear the plumed hat of office to sign New Zealand's founding document. New Zealanders are proud of their historic anti-nuclear stance, a stance that saw tensions with the US rise and has cost politicians their jobs when they suggest revisiting it. But it's not entirely accurate. While New Zealand doesn't have nuclear power plants and refuses to allow nuclear-powered vehicles to dock in our waters, nuclear technology is behind CT and PET scanners in hospitals, and New Zealand universities can hold up to a pound of uranium or thorium for educational purposes. Most Kiwi universities have this in use in nuclear particle accelerators, and any accidents caused by it will land them an instant $1 million fine. For decades, the rivalry between New Zealand and Australia over the birthplace of the quintessential Australasian dessert has been a cornerstone of what makes us proud to be New Zealanders. In 2008, Professor Helen Leach thought she'd proven the current pavlova was first found in New Zealand recipes in 1929 and had no resemblance to the jelly-layered Australian pavlova recipe from 1926. But 2015 research from a trans-Tasman scientific team shows the basic recipe structure can be found in British cookbooks from 1911, while corn flour exporters from the US in the 1890s suggested adding their product to meringues. All of these though are based on a 15th century German recipe for the House of Habsburg for Spanish Windtorte, a meringue coated in whipped cream and fruit. We like to think of ourselves as being quite ingenious when it comes to coming up with new ideas and being early adopters. Kiwis grow up hearing that New Zealand was the testing ground for FPOS and GPRS cell networks, that Bill Gallagher invented the electric fence, that The Lord of the Rings was shot entirely in New Zealand, and Richard Pearce's powered flight predated the Wright brothers. But in reality, electronic transaction cards were happening in the US 3 years before we got them, GPRS networks were in place in Europe 2 years before us, Bill refined power distribution for electric fences but didn't invent them, and there's actually one scene in The Lord of the Rings that was shot in South Africa because we didn't quite have the right sort of waterfalls. And Pearce himself actually refuted claims that he flew first, once in 1915 and then again in 1928. Don't despair though, Kiwis did invent tear-back Velcro, the pop lid and self-sealing paint tins, the child-proof medicine bottle, the crinkle and hair clips, and it was a Kiwi who split the atom and named the proton. Okay, so this is a bit tricky because obviously New Zealand exists. It's out there parked under my car right now, and while it's not uncommon for our little country to be left off world maps, it does very much exist. But under the Australian Constitution of 1900, New Zealand is listed as a member of the state of Australia. This was because New Zealand was, for a very long time, a dependency of New South Wales, and the original intent of their constitution was to create an Australasian state. But reports from New Zealand representatives on the process weren't positive, citing Australia's disinterest in allowing New Zealand a separate army, an unwillingness to work with Māori, changes to tariffs that would have crippled our economy, and an inability to agree on a location for Parliament that New Zealanders could easily access, or even the electoral system to use. New Zealand withdrew from the process. However, the provision to allow New Zealand to re-enter the Union without a vote from the other Australian states was left in case New Zealanders ever changed their mind, which mean, if you wanted to, technically New Zealand could become part of Australia.